weeks we're just gonna make ourselves sad. So
Yeah,
maybe
we're
not.
gonna need to we're gonna need to invent a whole new calendar for when we emerge from
Yeah,
our caves.
exactly. It's like
Um,
a whole new like out of quarantine, during quarantine kind of thing. Um,
like
so
BQ and AQ instead of
yeah,
BC. It's
I
the
think someone was
whole,
calling it
yeah.
BC before Corona, or before BQ was one.
That's
So I'll
so
give a
good.
little introduction of myself. My name is Susie. I work for Akaya, for the marketing team. So we're doing these lives. I told you a little bit about it yourself, and a few of these people have joined the last few weeks, and we talked to an expert, either in the coffee community or in another kind of field that we think people would be really interested in talking about.
Yeah,
So we've been doing it over the last 2 weeks to kind of like bring a little bit of normality, and a little something, maybe learn something new about something as well.
yeah,
So would you like to introduce yourself?
yeah. When you're like asked to write like a bio for yourself and you're just like, ah, how do I? Oh, I can't swear. Oh God. Sorry, I've already chucked that out the
If
window.
you
Uh,
it's fine because you could say like fudge or something.
yeah, fish or something like that. But so my name is Sierra. I am the co-founder of the Core Directive, which is a currently London-based, UK-based women's coffee professionals network. However, all of our events are open to everyone. Almost all of them. We do arrange, well, we did. I feel like I have to refer to everything in the past tense.
Oh
We
no.
did events that were focused on networking as well as skill sharing and so on and so forth in order to boost the career viability of a lot of these women. And just having a lot of fun in general. We've had events like our zero waste latte art throwdowns, which we created, and that was super fun. Things like talking about the cost of production and all sorts. We have had like espresso machine maintenance workshops, so a whole cast.
Mm.
In addition to that, I'm also a licensed Q grader and a freelance coffee writer for coffee publications all across the world. Yeah, and really kind of a Jacqueline of all trades, so to speak. So yeah,
Nice.
I
For
haven't.
that,
There's this comment. What was this guy saying? Zero waste latte. Are you drinking all those cafe lattes? No, actually, we're making them alcoholic.
yeah,
So we make sure that we pour a little bit of vodka in it and make a white Russian or a Caucasian and just, share the love.
yeah. I think
But yeah.
also I've seen one of them where people were turning them into ice cream afterwards,
Why
which was really, really good.
didn't we think of that? That's bloody brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
future
yeah,
ones after
yeah.
after quarantine.
Yeah,
Uh,
AC.
yeah. So I will want to remind people that if you would like to ask any questions about coffee in general, about Sierra's work in London or Sierra's work even as a Q grader or anything like that, there's a little comment box at the bottom with a little question mark. You can ask it there, and that means we can bring it up on the screen, and we can like, so if anyone drops in, they'll know what we're talking about. Don't be very confused. What are
hmm
you drinking at the moment?
Oh, I knew that would come up. I'm drinking a single malt whiskey, Islay whiskey called Bullmore.
Mm,
I'm a whiskey lady and I will continue to be a whiskey lady.
very
Whew,
nice.
it's
I'm
been a week. What
drinking
are you drinking?
apple shola.
Apfelschorle.
Yeah,
I need to continue with learning German. Like it's such a strangely endearing language. I remember I took it at university and I just wish I continued with it. Like
mm.
how is
It's all
your
pretty.
German language learning like going at the moment?
I'll just ask the questions here, so it's okay. Yeah, it's getting there. It's getting there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
hmm
I did learn that if you have I think it's like a katze. If you tell someone you have a katze, it doesn't mean you have a cat. It's
Uh-huh.
slang for having a hangover.
Oh,
Yeah,
having a capsa. I will
yeah,
use
having a
that. I
katze. So
will
it's like
employ that.
slang for hangover. So that kind of thing. So just one question. So just to start us off, how
Yeah,
did you get started in coffee? Because everyone always has a very interesting story of how they ended up in coffee.
yeah. I mean, yeah, you need to tell me your story after this because I feel like mine's super boring. I started out of pure necessity. I needed to pay my bills.
Why is
I
that boring?
actually, well, I just fell into it because I needed to feed myself. Doesn't sound very appealing, but yeah, I actually started. So I moved to the UK 7 years ago for university, and had to obviously support myself and pay rent and so on and so forth. So kind of took the job at a local coffee shop. I wasn't even on coffee at that point. I was manning the deli and the till. And and one thing led to another. And I think I had discovered at some point that making coffee was like the vehicle for connecting with people, which is what I was more concerned with. A
Mhm.
lot of the time, I enjoyed chatting with customers, and yeah, one thing led to another, and I saw employment at better and better coffee shops, so to speak, like so more specialty grade coffee shops, and really here I am,
Was this in like, did
yeah.
you learn more about specialty? So your first journey with specialty coffee was in London then?
No, actually. So I did university in York, so North, good old North. And yeah, I'm a northern bird I'm a northern bird, and no one will ever be able to take that away from me. I had 3 great years in York. I love my chips and cheese and gravy. But yeah, so did 3 years there, and then decided after I graduated that I didn't want to continue with my degree and down that path, and decided actually I wanted to do coffee, whatever that meant. So I moved down to Manchester and then to London after that, within 4 years.
Yeah, nice. Sorry, we
Is
have
it
to
a
feed
cat?
her.
It's like, yes, it's a cat. I wish I could move my camera.
I don't
I've
want to
got
make her
two
too
cats.
skittish, so I'm just going to move her. Actually, a question just came up which applies to your career.
Yes, go on.
And it's like, if I'm to
Ugh.
be a Q grader, oh, nice, cat's party.
Ugh. He's not happy
If
about
I'm to
that.
be a Q grader, what should I do to learn? So I guess you can talk a little bit about how you ended up. He's getting handed cats now.
Yeah, it's just cats all over. Yes, I am listening to the questions, I promise.
No, not at
Yes.
all.
So, if you were to be a Q grader, honestly, I think my training to be a Q grader started way before I actually engaged with the course, and it was actually off the back of a really nice conversation I had with Dale Harris, who was the World Barista Champion. Was it 2017, 2018?
20, yeah, 27. I'm going to say
Seven. I'm gonna say,
2017.
yeah, I'm gonna go with that. And he had just said, think about flavor every time you taste something. Um, you if you train yourself to spot the nuances, and if you challenge yourself to give everything at least one try, that will allow you to, build a greater flavor vocabulary, and apply that to coffee, and obviously try that across different mediums as well. Like I'm a big, as we said, a big whiskey fan and a big wine fan, and being able to identify those flavor notes across different mediums will be able to, help you with your coffee journey. Um, yeah, that's currently the very cost effective way of training to be a
Yeah.
Q grader so far, but yeah, that's what I've
Did
learned.
you do the test in London, or did you go like travel across Europe to do it? Because that's what I
No,
know like a
thankfully.
lot of
Oh,
people do.
yeah, thankfully there was actually a course in London going at the time with Rocky Rhodes, who is super famous, really established roaster for I think a couple of decades, and now he's a certified Q instructor of instructors for God knows how long. And without going into too much detail, the course it took place over I think 5 or 6 days
Hmm.
across 19 different tests.
Wow.
So yeah, I felt like I was going back to school again. That was fun. Um, and it tests your ability to fill out your SCA cupping form correctly, in a way that people understand. You have to be calibrated within a certain window of points of your class, identifying green defects and so on and so forth, and roasting defects and all that kind of stuff. And it was one of the most challenging things I've had to do in a while. um Anything, because you have this weird fear that you're like, yeah, I can taste coffee, but can I really taste coffee? Which was just running through my head the whole time when I was doing the Q. So it was intense, but it was super fun. And I was
Yeah.
very privileged to be able to do it. So
Yeah, because I heard this thing, I don't know if it's true, that when you're nervous or scared or kind of like you're almost like a fight or flight mode, is what
Yeah.
happens is that when you are nervous, like one of the first one of your senses to dull is going to be your sense of taste.
Mm, for
I don't know if
sure.
it's
And I
true.
think
Maybe maybe you got taught in Q grading, but like
and
trying to you
it's
have to
just,
stay calm.
yeah. And I think like overthinking was something that a lot of people had warned me about. They were like, don't overthink what you smell. Like you have a very good, you know, you have a very good nose and a very good tongue. Like you're going to be fine. Um,
Yeah.
but I think actually one of the tips that I had learned that I hadn't learned before was that your nose always knows better.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's discussed often enough. Like, there's this point where basically you have to do what's called a triangulation. I don't know if a lot of people know about that, but you have to pick the odd cup out from within a cupping. And what you do is you smell the dry ground, so you get the fragrance. And then obviously they put the water in and you get the aroma and then you taste, right? So there's three different kind of rounds you can go with the same three coffees. But almost every time, I think you get a higher success rate with just smelling. So always aim to smell
Okay.
the different first. I hadn't even realized that was a thing. And I was always like, I need my tongue to confirm what my nose already knows, but my nose actually knew far better than my tongue
Yeah.
did. So it's mad.
Nice.
Yeah.
And is there like written exams for Q?
Yes. It was like
Yeah.
100 questions or something. It was I think 100 within an hour. I don't quote me on that, but
Mm.
yeah, like it's basically like I think for me it was 4 back-to-back days of just learning the course material, and then it's like the last thing on the fifth day, and then the sixth day is just all cuppings and so on and so forth. So very intense. So for those of you who want to be a Q grader, please go for it. It was one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done in my coffee career. But be forewarned, it is intense. It will sap you. It'll squeeze the life out of you. But
Yeah,
yeah.
because with those things you hear about people practicing for cup tasters, for like worlds and stuff, probably before Q is like I've heard people like they only eat the blandest food.
I don't know if I buy into that. I think beyond like spicy food, I've heard arguments on either side, but some people are like, don't change it at all. If you smoke, don't stop smoking because you're gonna like mess with your, how the way you taste and your body's gonna react in a different way. But I've also heard the other argument, which is like, just eat chicken for 7 days. And I don't, I don't know how I feel about that because I loved, like, I was more moderate with my food choices, but I wasn't like swearing off chili or anything like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah, don't beat yourself up on it.
someone's asking, do you remember any of the questions that were on your exam? Like what type of
Cheeky.
questions
I
were?
like that, but cheeky, and I love it. Great points to you for thinking of that. But no, I don't. Like, I blanked out. I think if you gave me like an SCA cupping form right now, I'd just be like, oh. Um, and with good reason. I think a lot of people don't have reason to use an SCA cupping form during a cupping a lot of the time. So I would say take it with a pinch of salt, like practice every now and again once you've got your certification, with a form, and keep calibrated with other people in your batch or your cohort that have are Q graders. But beyond that, don't overthink it. You are like how to taste coffee. You're a coffee professional. Just
Mm.
yeah.
And for the other thing you mentioned as well is that you're a freelance copywriter, which
Uh-huh.
like I would also class myself as that, but there's very few of us around. I would
We are a
say I
rare
don't know.
breed.
We're a rare breed, probably for a
Hmm.
reason.
Hmm.
Um, but like, how do you approach? What do you usually like writing about coffee? Do you kind of talk about the technical side, or do you talk more about culture?
Actually, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. When I got started, it was actually with a company called Perfect Daily Grind. I think some of you may have heard of that, and they're a very good coffee media company, um, that publishes a lot of bite-sized, digestible articles on different things, on different nuances within the coffee industry. And So that was my first exposure, and I was with them for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that worked was that they would give me briefs. So they, based on my role within the coffee community so far, so I was a manager at that point of a cafe, and I was also a barista. You know, they would really streamline topics that they thought I would be good at writing. And amongst other things, obviously I'm a person of color and an immigrant in the United Kingdom. So a lot of that kind of stuff. So we talked a lot about culture and race and gender, obviously with my work, the core directive. So those topics kind of came very naturally to me as well. And I think that early year was what helped define the way I wrote and what I wrote about. And soon, I mean, now I kind of find a lot of people approaching me with pitches or briefs, you know, that fall into a certain category, and I appreciate that. So
I like how you're kind of like you're skirting the category, but you can kind of like always.
Yeah, but I love, you know, I love writing a lot about humans in coffee. So I recently wrote a couple pieces for for Barista Magazine, who are based in the United States, about the hidden costs of coffee production. You know, what producers face when they have to, you know, deliver us a certain lot of coffee and so on and so forth. Like what internally they're meant to do. And on my recent trip to Costa Rica, God, that seems like a lifetime ago. In January, I had several meetings with an anthropologist who worked for UNICEF, who was talking about, I think, the migration patterns of the Ngami and the Bugle, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, nomad groups of coffee harvesters in Costa Rica and Panama. And I found that so interesting. Like, no one in Costa Rica, it's very uncommon for Costa Ricans to be coffee harvesters.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they actually rely on migration of you know, immigrants to help them harvest coffee, and that wasn't something I'd ever thought about before. So all of these like intricacies within coffee production, for example, are things that I'm super interested in writing about, but also with a human side to them.
Yeah. And are you now kind of focusing more on that at the moment? Are you writing anything at the moment about like how humans are being affected right now within the coffee industry?
I am not at the moment, so I'm writing a lot about sustainability at the moment, and those were briefs that I received before, obviously, the pandemic kicked in.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say that we're all trying to get our head around like how this has impacted the industry. And yeah, like I can't say I've thought about writing about it, but it's an interesting thing to explore. What about yourself? Like, have you thought about writing about that, like how COVID's
To be,
impacted the industry?
no, it's funny. It's because, and I'm sure that other kind of marketing people would also notice this, and it's something that I was talking to Brody Vizers a couple of weeks ago about, is that we've seen a huge increase in kind of the amount of people who are you're seeing interacting online, and like everyone is putting these videos up of like how to brew at home,
Yeah,
kind of within their circle of like how to brew at home, how to make our coffee, how to stay in touch with like your coffee community and stuff.
yeah,
But it's funny because I haven't seen. It's funny that you're talking about production and migrant workers in Costa Rica at the moment, because that's obviously maybe something that's directly affecting what's going
yeah,
on at the moment.
yeah,
So
exactly.
I wouldn't be like, I think I've seen one BBC video even talking about it.
Yeah. Oh shit,
Yeah, one BBC
I need to
video.
check it out. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's it. That's all the wealth of information we have at the moment, and I think um I remember discussing with Barista Magazine about potentially writing about how it's impacted London locally, where I'm based, but with regards to like the wider supply chain, no, we haven't been able to do that. But that's super interesting, and I think it's
Mm,
something that I think once mentally and emotionally I'm able to get my mind around COVID, like it would be something wonderful to explore.
mm.
Um,
That's funny. Someone asked for your article and Jen has just connected it there.
Thank you. Thanks, Jen. I'm
Yeah.
just like, woo, in my own world, and yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
linking it.
No, no, it's good. And with the core directive, is it the core or the Corey or?
the core. Yeah, I'm just accepting everything, like, yeah, it doesn't matter.
No,
But
be
it's the
rigid.
core
Tell them
directive.
what to do. The core directive.
Hmm.
When was that started?
So that was started, so unofficially in August of 2018 and officially in November. So when I applied for like
Mhm.
license to be a company and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Nice. And why did you start it?
Okay.
This is like a very, it seems like a very obvious like
Yeah.
question, but it's funny, like,
Uh, yeah, it's sorry, you were saying it's funny.
yeah, it's funny. It's like, it might be like seem like because of you wanted more women being involved in the community, but was there like maybe even like a couple of reasons of events, something you heard, or like reasons you decided that you and your co-founder decided to start it, or
Yeah,
co-founders?
so I think initially, so it actually started off the back of a really negative working experience that I had as a barista working in a cafe in central London. And there was just a lot of stuff going on, and I think what the trigger was really just like a case of nepotism, I would imagine,
Okay.
where my head barista had actually hired his best friend from I think they had both moved over from Oz. He had hired his best friend to be general manager like of the weekend shifts. It's super trivial, but um yeah, and basically passed over a lot of people that were more qualified or had been there longer. And we could all kind of see that this was going on. And I remember having a conversation where I confronted him about it, and I was like, well, why aren't we hiring more people? And B, why aren't we hiring more women? And I remember his response to me was, well, we've just hired, our last two hires were you and another lady. So
We reached the quota.
yeah. And I was just kind of like, how is this an argument? Like, so I think at that point I had realized that I had brought this up with a lot of people, a lot of close, trusted friends, and realized that I wasn't the only person this was happening to. And obviously that's no surprise. Um, but I think I had also felt that more acutely for many reasons as a person of color and as an immigrant who isn't native to the UK. I felt like I had more to prove.
Mm.
And to be passed over like that and to just be subject to some conditions that I wasn't very happy with was just like, well, I want to channel all of this resentment, and let's be honest, it was resentment at that point, into doing something productive. And that's kind of where the idea for the core came up. Speaking to a lot of other women who had felt the same way, I was just like, well, why don't we just start something?
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think the focus since then, at least before the pandemic, was to have a lot of events where people could network. So not just women, because feminism is really for everyone. To have events where people could network and gain skills that would help them in their coffee career progression. So if it's learning how the cost of production works along the supply chain, or if it's learning how to fix a grinder, or learning how to cup with a beginner. So we had an event where it was like, bring your own regular. So every barista had to like bring two of their regulars, whom they didn't normally have time to like chat to about coffee.
Nice.
And it was just like, it was a full house. And people really responded well to what we had to say. And yeah, and even just across all the genders, I think that was really encouraging for us. And it made us realize that there was work to be done. So yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So we do have a question. Um, is the core directive work, is it only doing
Amazing.
work in England or more like an international works?
We have a lot of international friends, but we haven't done anything kind of like cross platform so far, or cross borders.
Yeah.
We currently only operate within the UK, but we'd love, obviously, if this kept going. And obviously, we'll see how the pandemic pans out, but we'd love to do Recently, I had a chat with a friend who runs a exporting company in Colombia. And she also sources from like I think she sources with all women producers. And she was like, I would love to do like an origin trip where whoever is involved in the core directive could come over and meet all these amazing women producers. And I just thought, that's phenomenal. That's really great.
Hmm. Nice. And like, because you at the moment are doing online stuff as well. You're doing the online chats.
Yeah. So that's
Are
been
they?
that they've been great. They've been really honest and really like really fun so far. We've had a whole, a cast of people join us whenever they can. And obviously it's not only limited to women. I feel like I get this question a lot where they're like, is this open to everyone? And like, yes, it is,
Yeah.
unless we state otherwise. Like feminism is for everyone. Um, but yeah, so we do a variety of we've done a variety of topics like what's your favorite mug, which is great because I don't have a good mug at all. Um, and like what's one thing you've been grateful for during this quarantine, or like name one person you've reconnected with, and just like generally really uh, topics that have the room for you to delve into to get to
Hmm.
know people better. And it's been also a really good source of it's been a really good routine, I think, for people who need it, especially in this time where you can't tell day from night. So yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think at the beginning there was a lot of, what day is this? Is it Tuesday? Is it Tuesday again? How is it
Yeah.
Tuesday again? Kind of stuff.
Is it the
I know it's
third Tuesday in
Monday.
a row? Like what?
Yeah. What year
Yeah.
is it? Yeah, kind of thing. This is, oops, sorry. Is it popping up? This is from Andrews. I'm a writer. I'm from Mexico and would love to learn and work with you. I don't know. Is that
Oh,
with the core
thanks.
directive?
That's
Or
right.
maybe with
Yeah,
the
I
the
mean,
freelance writer?
drop us a DM and more than happy to chat about things and so on and so forth. So
Mm. And how are you finding quarantine as well? Even though you just said that's coming up in the core directive.
um personally, I am finding quarantine very enjoyable. I think I've always like pre-pandemic, I'd always relished staying at home anyway. Like I have a job where I have the privilege to work from home. And I'm usually only called out to meet with clients and so on and so forth, like very similar to yourself. But yeah, since the pandemic, I've been like, oh, I'm gonna learn how to weave or like whittle some wood. It's
Have you
just
whittled any wood?
I is that a euphemism?
No, no. I mean, like it's like that kind of. It's not a euphemism. I mean, like that kind of thing. I think it's like. I can't remember what
I've
joke it is.
actually,
It's like.
it's great actually. Like, okay, so like not the whittling plant because we haven't been able to get any like green wood, but I've actually um learned how to macrame.
Okay. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, right. I know. I was just like, yeah, this is great. And I've like repotted all my plants.
Oh yeah,
What
you
else
have to
did
show
we
us all your plants
do?
actually.
Oh my God, yeah. So like all of these bad boys, like they all have names. Like I'm that kind of person that names my plants. It's great. What else have we got? Like I've got two cats I need to basically monitor on a 24-hour basis. They're fine now, but oh yeah, there's more
Fantastic.
macrame here. Um, Myself and James, my partner, like we've actually learned how to create incense cones. Like that's how niche it gets. Like, we just do the most random stuff. I can't remember what else we've done, but yeah, that's basically a snapshot of. Oh, we learned how to like forage. So if you chuck me into the wilderness and and there's an apocalypse happening, which really isn't that far off right now, I could probably survive. And I think I'm
Okay,
very
nice.
proud to say that.
So we do have we was one question connecting to you as a Q grader.
Yeah.
Can you explain how to judge balance in a SCA cupping form if you can remember?
Balance. I remember Rocky had said, so my instructor Rocky had actually said this, and he was just like, balance obviously means different things to different people, and as long as the story that you're weaving about the coffee with how you score it, so say like, oh, it's got a great open, but then the aroma sort of dissipates a little bit in the middle, and but it then cools down to have a pleasant finish. As long as you're weaving the story of the coffee accurately, the way you taste it, with the points that you're awarding it in every certain point, and obviously balance applies to that as well. Balance is usually, I think, the last bit of the form. Um, as long as that dovetails, you are you should be able to justify why you taste things a certain way and why you scored a coffee a certain way. And that was super helpful for me. Balance is a different thing to everyone. And if you find that a coffee is balanced for you and you've scored it, I don't know, something like a 7.25 or maybe even higher, 7.5, that should be enough. And as long as you're able to justify it, that's fine. Um,
Hmm.
you shouldn't be looking to like jig your scores to be in line with the rest of your class. That is going to get you messed up. So don't do that. Um, yeah, because you might overcompensate or undercompensate in a certain way.
Yeah, it sounds like from how you described that the whole Q grading process, it sounds exhausting.
Yeah. I remember just going home after the first day and just being like, I need to like sleep and never wake up. Like it's so intense. Um, and obviously, and there's another thing as well with Q grading, like don't be afraid of retakes. Um, like it's not an easy thing to get the first time around. Like and
Hmm.
you can always find a retake within several months of your like of your course finishing within your city. And I think especially if you're based in London, like I am, it comes up fairly frequently. Obviously not right now, but yeah, it will
Yeah.
do. But yeah, don't be afraid of that because it's such a, I think coming down to like the abstract principle of it, the Q grader course is such a narrow bandwidth of what it means to taste coffee accurately. And because tasting coffee is so subjective, like we're just voluntarily subjecting ourselves to this standard of knowing how to
Yeah.
taste coffee. But like at the end of the day, it's something that we've made up. Like if you can taste coffee, you can taste coffee. And that was something that really challenged me when I was doing the Q grader because I was like, I know how to taste coffee. Like I don't need a qualification to tell me that. But also I really want that qualification, so I don't know. That was just kind of how I
Uh,
felt.
Someone's asking, can you retake right after you failed it? I think you
You
can.
can
Well,
retake some things. I'm not too sure. I can't remember which ones, but I know, like, for example, the cuppings, if you fail them, you have to retake in the next class, for example, because that's quite a intensive process.
mm, I know that, what was it? Sensory Professional by SCA.
Hmm.
I think you can retake some stuff on the same day or the day after, but it depends. Like,
Yeah,
or what you like in some countries, for instance, like say in Ireland, if you're doing the professional, you need like an authorized person to be there when doing professional, like
exactly.
like someone who's already has the can be a teacher or a guide or I can't remember what the name of it is. So, but if you mess it up and they don't have enough resources, you have to go and like travel to another city or wait like 7 or 8 more months until they're back in your city.
Exactly. Exactly that.
Yeah,
And I think that the tricky thing about the Q grader is that your certification kind of runs from when you first start the course. So you need to retake as soon as possible so that the 3 years, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I think the 3 years from when you first start your course will start counting down, if that makes sense. So you just need to retake whatever you failed as soon as possible. Basically, there are some minor retakes and some major retakes, but you have to, I think the minor ones you can do almost immediately, like you said,
mm.
but the major ones you have to wait for the next course with a certified instructor to retake.
Oh man, that feels
I'm telling you.
crazy.
I'm telling you, it's really intense. But yeah, it's super fun as well. Like I wouldn't my course mates and I actually we're all on a WhatsApp group and we're still in touch and we still like that stuff bonds you.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it was such a welcoming experience. Like everyone was so supportive of each other. There's only like 7 of us. Um and we did it at the London School of Coffee. So it was really good. Like we had some people come in from Germany to take it and stuff like that, and it was great.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was good. It was good fun.
Nice. Let me see if any questions. Okay. Uh, How I think it's like how do you source your coffee? I don't know. That could be for like how you source your coffee at home.
I have a
But
coffee plant. I'm just waiting on it for the next, I don't know, 6 years. That little guy
wow.
there. Yeah, I mean that's how I source my coffee. I don't even know what coffee it is, but I guess how do I buy coffee?
Maybe how you buy coffee. Because it's like I think in that sense, like for me in Berlin, you sort of like buy it from your friends. You buy it from your
Yeah.
friends' roasteries,
Oh
and
yeah.
you buy it
Oh
like
yeah.
you'll be in getting a coffee or some
Yeah.
such like that, and you're like, oh, I'll buy a coffee from my roaster friend.
Yeah. I think very, very similar to yourself. We actually, because me and James are both coffee people, we actually had what I would consider to be a massive stockpile of coffees way before the pandemic started. Um, but pre-pandemic, it would be from friends or any sort of like test roasts that we had coming in from the roastery that James works at. And currently, I think we're trying to buy as local as possible.
I
So,
will just say your
supporting
English
local
is very good.
businesses.
We can understand. So this person just like commenting here, your English is very good. We understand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You-
I'm gonna tone it down a little bit. But yeah, we're trying to source our coffee as locally as possible. Um, and basically, yeah, just try to support small businesses that are still open for, yeah, for business, really.
Mm. And have you done any like ordering coffee online since the quarantine?
We're still working through the last, I guess, big order that we did was from Assembly, based in Brixton in London. Um, but we definitely have like a list of people that we want to support, a list of companies that we want to support when we do run out of coffee. So we're just trying to get through as much coffee as possible, really. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen
Hmm.
I think I know that some roasteries have had some issues with like sending online orders, especially within like within and across Europe.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of issues in the supply chain about like, getting your packaging, continuing to get the same packaging you have, delivering within a certain area. A lot of not just roasteries, but coffee shops in London are like delivering by bike, which I think is so labor intensive.
Mm,
Um, yeah, and just it's just phenomenal. I think the things our businesses have had to do to adapt to the pandemic. And kudos to that effort. But yeah, there's definitely been a little bit of tension, I think, with a lot of coffee businesses here in the UK.
yeah, and like just kind of bouncing off that question and kind of connecting it to you as a someone who knows the industry very well as a writer and as someone who's researching it all the time. How do you think kind of the especially coffee business in either London or um, internationally is going to like come out of this? Like at like coffee community at Core Directive at like farm level at London. It's a big question, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think so far what we've seen is that obviously there's been an uptick, and I'm not sure if it's the same in Germany, but I've heard similar things, where there's been an uptick in specialty. So a lot of people are now that I mean, for lack of a better word, are forced to consume coffee, to consume things by delivery to their home. They're thinking, okay, maybe I will try out this switch to specialty and I will try better quality coffee than, my supermarket home brand and stuff like that. So we're seeing actually an uptick in business for roasteries, for specialty roasteries, which I think is very encouraging.
Mm,
And if there's one good thing to come out of this pandemic is that our businesses are worth supporting. Specialty businesses, whether or not you're a roaster or a cafe or whatever, are worth supporting. And I think that's super positive. So, and I don't mean that just from people who are already consuming specialty to begin with, but new consumers. There's also been a lot of information and a lot of resources available with regards to community building online. So people are really making the effort to connect and stay connected with people they work with or their customers via an online medium, which is again very positive. So
yeah, because I think I was talking with someone where they said that oh, every day we go on like Instagram or Twitter, and you just see videos after video of like people um doing like how-to videos, how to make an AeroPress, how to do this, and like we might see as coffee professionals, we might see these everywhere, but like
Mm,
to someone else who's in within a different circle that might be following one coffee person, that's all.
yeah.
That's the whole like thing they see, and they're like, oh, I can actually do that.
Yeah, I think that's positive. Like I think I remember not knowing what to make of that. I guess it was a fad, but only because like I'm sure like yourself, I follow like coffee people as the majority of my feed. So I was just like, why is everybody publishing how to make an AirPress? Like we all know how to make an
Yeah.
AirPress. But then I think I thought about it and I was like, okay, this serves, other people that we don't even know, this content touches. And if that means that the amount of people consuming specialty coffee increases after this, it can only be a good thing for us. It means that we have
Mm,
jobs to go back to. It means that we are able to better serve the producers that we support. So I think that's phenomenal.
yeah. And someone just said, if only there was a green bean mailing culture, it'd be good for us farmers. Well,
That
I
would
think
be, yeah.
isn't there like I think in the States they have the Sweet Marie. Is it like is that what it's called? Sweet
I've
Maria's?
never heard of
Maybe
that.
someone
What is that?
maybe someone maybe someone in the audio in watching can clarify, but there's a company in the US that their whole business is actually posting green beans to home roasters.
Nice.
But the
Yeah.
thing is, I guess you could a lot of people would see that as you're still mailing it to um, the US and then it has to get mailed out. Yeah, Sweet Maria's. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
And Tony. It's they get sent out to home. So it's like a lot actually how a lot of uh, coffee roasters who now have quite well-to-do businesses started out. So there's ones I know that were like that make them in pans and popcorn machines and stuff like that.
Whoa. That's
Yeah,
pretty cool. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. And
it's
I
great.
like I think especially in like a more developed country like the UK, there's definitely a higher proportion of people who do own home roasters. So that's definitely something that I think we in Greater Europe can explore. Like that's definitely something that we can think about for sure.
Mm.
Very interesting.
But there isn't even, there's even the uptake of like how people are roasting at home because now everyone's got the Ikawas, which by the way
Yeah,
everyone always
yeah.
thinks we work for. The
Ikawa, if
Ikawas.
you're watching, I don't have an Ikawa yet, so that would be great. I
uh,
personally would be bamboozled by roasting. That's the one thing I've never been able to get my mind around. I know from hearing from a lot of friends that it's actually fairly simple to get the basic gist of, but I'm like, to make yourself an exceptional roaster, I think is a whole different story. So yeah, definitely not something I could claim to do at all.
yeah. This is, I guess you could even connect this to our last question. What do you think is one of the biggest challenges in the specialty coffee industry?
Big question. I mean,
That is a
um,
very good question.
it is a very good question. I mean, there's a whole host of things to think about. Obviously, there's more gender and race equity, and in businesses, I think, especially across I guess, the developed countries, especially at a barista level. But I think primarily for me, it would be that we're not paying our producers enough to make coffee. I think that's something that sits, um, that I think is just very close to heart for me. We don't pay people enough to make a good that we consider a luxury.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that by any measure baristas make a lot of money. Like a lot of countries are being paid what, an hourly wage to make coffee. Um, but I think somewhere in the middle of the supply chain, a lot of that power and a lot of that money is concentrated, and there's obviously so many routes to market. Um, I would say for me, that's one of the biggest challenges that we currently face. And I'm glad that a lot of people who choose to continue consuming specialty right now are choosing to pay a premium for it to support, their local business, their local baristas that they know by name, or even to support, if you're more clued in, producers halfway across the world to continue, harvesting coffee that we enjoy. And I think that will definitely come into the limelight once we get out of this. But that has always been a problem that's existed, and we are nowhere near solving it. But it remains. It's still a pertinent question.
Yeah. And someone just said buying from a roaster is a different experience than buying green for home. One does not replace the other. I would most
Oh, for
definitely
sure.
agree. Yeah.
For sure. I could
Yeah.
really botch it up. I remember this thing that a good friend of mine said to me, and this is when I was still a baby barista. I was working for Proofrock in London, for some of you who have already visited. And this was a colleague and a friend of mine. And I remember like just twiddling the EK, trying to dial in my coffee just right, and like going to like half measures on the EK, like between the notches. And I remember him saying to me, he was like, if think about it, like your role as a barista isn't that important at the end of the day. And I didn't know how to feel about it after he said that. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And he's like, at the end of the day, a coffee needs to be sourced well, harvested well, grown well, and roasted well before it even gets to you. Like with all of those measures in place, it's incredibly presumptuous and arrogant of you to think that if you go off of a coffee by half a notch, you're gonna mess it up. Like, how good do you think you are? And I think that was like a real like slap to the face, and I was like, holy shit! Like, in some ways, it makes me feel really bad about myself, but in other ways, it alleviates that pressure. It takes the pressure off me to make a perfect coffee. And
Mm.
obviously, I know people out there will disagree, especially if you're competing at the world level. Obviously, yes, that half a notch makes all the difference. Um, but I think as a coffee maker and brewer, give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Give yourself some leeway. Like if coffee is good when you get it, like if it's been roasted well or grown well or harvested well, like you you should be able to make a delicious cup of coffee. And I
Yeah.
think we need to not overthink it so much.
Because I think everyone's been in that situation where when they're a barista at a coffee shop and you'll get a
Yeah.
new coffee or something and someone will describe it, oh, this one's a forgiving coffee.
Yeah, I'm like, what does
Yeah.
that mean?
What does that
Excuse
mean? What?
you.
What is it?
Yeah,
What do you mean
yeah.
forgiving? And it's never about like people can describe coffee as like, oh, that's an easy drinking one. But when someone says it's a forgiving coffee,
Like, so you mean I'm able to screw up a lot more? Okay.
yeah, like
Like,
yeah, kind
I
of.
don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think at the end of the day, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I felt this way, as talking about like your journey as a coffee professional. I I've swung back and forth in the last 7 years between, oh my gosh, I need to get it just right, to I will drink literally anything you put in front of me. And I think even for coffees from, big corporates like Starbucks or Costa here in the UK or Pret, down to the best, the most meticulously sourced specialty coffee, like a 90 plus coffee or whatever, um,
Mm,
that someone still has to grow it, you
yeah.
know? And I think we tend to overthink in the search for quality. We tend to forget that people's livelihoods are at stake, and I'm very likely to drink a fantastic coffee as I am to drink a subpar, maybe a Robusta, maybe an instant coffee. Like I think as you grow in your coffee journey, you have more discernment. And I think it's
Hmm.
probably like the message we want to leave on today, which is like, you shouldn't judge coffees, you shouldn't judge the intrinsic value of coffees based on how much they score. But it's like,
Yeah.
what did it take to get it to your table? I think is something that we don't talk about a lot. Like, yeah, like, so I will like drink, like I miss, and this is probably gonna make some people sign off here, but like I miss a good Starbucks iced caramel macchiato. I don't know about you, but
But called
man,
it's
like as
the
much as
iced
I
caramel
miss my
macchiato.
isn't even a macchiato. And I'm like, bloody hell, I know you've like mismarketed it, but I miss it. And I'm just as likely to drink a Ponderosa Geisha. Like it,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that to anyone's credit who can enjoy both extremes of the spectrum, like you are a true coffee professional. Like you know how to discern, but you also know how to enjoy coffee as it comes. Like some
Yeah.
people are like, no, what the hell? Okay.
Why would you say that? No, but come on, think about it.
Yeah.
Like that, like the coffee you get in Starbucks, like the caramel giant Fenty
Hello?
macchiatos.
I'm here.
Actually, I think it was company by Rihanna, but
Here.
can you hear?
Yeah.
But that those drinks you get that you pay so much
Yeah.
for are like
Yeah.
there's probably been teams and teams of people who've been paid a very good salary to
Yeah.
design these drinks.
Yeah,
To
and
like, yeah,
FYI, actually, as well, I actually found this out when I was visiting Costa Rica this year on an origin trip, which was that Starbucks actually do have a dedicated research facility. So this is in conjunction with the World Coffee Research
I'm just going to
Organization.
quickly interrupt you and say there's
Yeah,
a 5 minute warning, so we
five
will have
minutes.
to close up soon.
I'm gonna fire away. But
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, like they have a lab and a farm or even series of farms in Costa Rica dedicated to researching coffee varietals, and like and being able to develop more sustainable hybrids and varietals for producers moving forward. So we have to be, I think, less judgmental and less closed-minded with the work that big companies are doing to support producers. At the end of the day,
Hmm.
I think a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on, oh, specialty puts, a name of a farmer and a picture of a farmer on their bag, and it makes people feel better about consuming directly from source via direct trade. But is your bag of coffee going to make, the bag of coffee that you bought going to make a difference?
Hmm.
Sometimes I think we need to kind of reel it back a little bit and think we're just a drop in the ocean. There are certain companies out there, and not naming any names, but there are certain companies out there who do have the clout and the power to impact producers' lives on a larger level than we could ever hope for. And, we have to really be realistic about the difference that we're making. And I think shouting about things and raising awareness about direct trade is great, but we also need to stop casting stones at companies who might be able to make a difference, more than we will ever do.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've learned from like my coffee journey over the last 7 years. So
Yeah. And it's even that, I think someone pointed it out where like a lot of the research that the specialty community is getting their information from is from like companies like Nescafe and Starbucks and everything like that. They're doing like Nescafe is a very big company. We're aware of this, but do have side divisions that are doing research into like the biology of the plant,
exactly.
how to keep the farms going, how like best way to like run a farm and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
it is kind
like
of
how to keep your costs down,
yeah,
how to invest in varietals that are the most cost efficient for your farm and stuff like that. And
mm-hmm.
and yeah, and a lot of this research to support companies that we support, to support farms that we support, are done by companies that we normally people would be like, what? To? And I think that's yeah, and we don't talk about that enough. So
Yeah. We have one question that I think you might have kind of touched on. This will be the last question, by the way.
yeah.
What can we, as a small producer, do to make ourselves more visible to the big guys?
Ooh, that's a toughie. I think a lot of, from my experience, and I won't say that's conclusive at all. Um, a lot of smaller producers tend to approach, I would say, bigger importers. So, the likes of your Algrano or your Cafe Imports or your Falcon, in order to gain that kind of access. I would also probably recommend doing research on the importers that these big guys use and perhaps getting your coffee in that way. But a lot of that kind of stuff, I think, appears on a micro level, in terms of the quality of the coffee that you source, and the processes that you have in place to make sure that you're delivering good coffee. And again, it's I guess for the big guys, you're looking at a range of between, I want to say, 60 to 80 on the SCA grading scale. So really knowing which market your coffees are going to and which importer therefore to engage for each lot is important. And yeah, again, classify myself as an expert on this, please. Oh my gosh, I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this question is massive. I don't want to be responsible.
Okay.
But yeah, that's all I've got so far. So I hope it helps.
No, definitely. So just before, because I know these lives will cut out if you go over the hour, but I wanted to thank you so much for joining me on this Monday evening.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I hope if anyone wants to go follow Sierra and what she does, it's the Core Directive, at the Core Directive on Instagram. And you are also kind of running similar chats as well and kind of groups. So we'll be doing another one. We'll do more soon, but we'll announce them on social media. So thank you so much, Sierra. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you too. And say goodbye to your cats for me. And thank you, everybody, for watching. There's this one last comment that says specialty coffee media doesn't showcase the producer enough. Hallelujah. Amen. I agree.
Agreed.
Yeah, we need to pay more for coffee. And that's how I'm going to end off.
All right.
All right. Ciao.